Hello, my name is Dennis Cole. I'm one of the priests at St. Luke's San Lucas Episcopal Church in Vancouver, Washington. And as you have also experienced, it's been a difficult number of weeks, and for those of us involved in the church, we haven't been able to get together in our usual way and to celebrate being together. But I've been thinking in my own way about the meaning of all of this, and I'd like to spend a word or two just talking with you about that. But before I get too much into that, I want to say thank you for all of those who have sent beautiful cards, get well cards for Susan, my wife, who broke her hip and then broke her arm. She's in recovery and doing much better, and in large part because of all of the love and prayers that we have been getting. One of the people who we hadn't seen for a long time sent us a card, and she reminded us of what studies have shown time and time again of the importance of music and its impact upon our emotionality and our clarity of thinking. And of course, Julie, very much involved in our church, keeping the music central to us. But Judy wrote and said this was her favorite saying of late to help her get through. She said, God is a DJ. Life is a dance floor. Love is the rhythm. And you are the music. I like the notion of being an instrument that, in fact, can play the music that has been given to us through creation or through nature, through the joy of interaction, whether it's Zoom or on the street or whether maybe even in the grocery store. I'd invite you to look up two particular songs if you're interested in songs and some of their straightforward meaning. One is by Neil Young. It's a beautiful song called When God Made Me. I hope you can look it up, find it, and find it self-reflective. And the other one is by Jamie Rickard. Not as well known, but a beautiful music author and performer, and worked with Susan when she was doing her sacred dance. And it's Is Your God So Small? And I invite you to look at those and think about them. But today I'm very interested in talking just briefly about the gospel reading for this Sunday, second Sunday in Easter. It's from Luke, and it's a story several days after Jesus had been killed and in the tomb and in the resurrection. And these two guys are walking along the road. And to me, it just very quickly transformed into two people walking along our street here. There's a lot more people out on the street and walking, and a lot of conversations, some side by side, some in some distance. And so they're walking along and talking and saying, gee, this thing has been so difficult. And I was just beginning to think that maybe we would learn that the coronavirus has taught us that borders aren't really very important anymore. And taught us maybe that we are earthlings first, and all these other separations later. And that maybe climate change is real, because now that the pollution is down, you can actually see in some of our major cities without smog. And you can hear birds that are now able to be heard and aren't as afraid because the sounds are less, and the dolphins I hear are swimming in places where the large sounds of ships and whatnot have kept them away. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting, but you don't look at the news and hear about warfare anymore. And it seems like it's a good time, and yet now I'm hearing that there's political conflict about what to do next. And suddenly it's not so much aware of these things that we have seen or learned, but rather back to the same old stuff. Who's the smartest? Who is the most powerful? Who has the most money, and who has the biggest ego? And so we'll forget about all this stuff, and let's get back as quickly as we can to the way it used to be, and the way it was when things were the way you and I thought they maybe could be better. But and these two guys, as they're walking down, then suddenly they're aware this guy is following behind them, and they looked at him, and he looked at them, and he said, "I couldn't help but pay attention to what you were talking about." And they stopped, and so the three of them, and of course right now it's social distancing, so they're far enough apart. But he said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow you are to let the heart of a believer ring through." You're so quickly able to listen to the news and see that, in fact, all of those insights that you have really aren't right. And this guy said to them, "Haven't you heard what the prophets have been saying for a long time? And don't you remember what you learned in Sunday school? And the core of what you learn in church about the primacy of interaction with each other and love and caring, and how we shouldn't be putting one another over each other, and obviously we shouldn't hurt each other, we shouldn't be at war." And they said, "Well, my goodness, that's very interesting. That maybe we shouldn't be so caught up in the politics right now and think about what we have learned from this coronavirus visitation." And so they were just about to go where they were going to head for dinner, and Jesus walked on ahead. I told you who it was. It was Jesus. And they said to him, "Why don't you come and join us for dinner? I'd like to hear what you said." And so he did. And they went in and had dinner together. And you can imagine what it's going to be like when we are allowed and it's safe for us to go into restaurants again and to actually have neighbors over to our own house. And that's what they were doing, I think. And he broke bread there, and talked a little bit about how significant it is for this communication to each other and this loving of each other, and to listen to each other and to disagree and argue and come to some kind of resolution, and to understand the priorities for living. And then he wasn't there anymore. And they said to each other, "My gosh, didn't your heart feel warmed by those thoughts?" And so they left and went quickly back to where the others were, who were still very discouraged because of what was going on. The fact Jesus had been killed, etc., etc., and maybe caught up in the current problems with the virus and all that stuff. And then they began to recognize that there is a power greater than all of this, and it's a simple power. And it is something that they can do, and they can be the instrument of. In conclusion, I heard a woman priest talking last Sunday at the National Cathedral. And she talked about the importance of changing some of our imagery from, and as I was a chaplain for many years, I know the importance of being a chaplain, to be the caring individual as people are in trauma. But she says we need a better image or a fuller image, and I think we need to be midwives. We need to bring new life into this time in which we are living. We need to recognize we have in our hands the capability of bringing new life and new joy and new hope, not lose sight of what we have learned through all this time. We know how important it is to be with your family and with friends. We know how important it is to give food to those who need it. And we can't forget that now to try and get our economy back to shape, but we need to see that our economy comes back into shape with all of those other considerations in mind. I invite you to look at the psalm for this Sunday, Psalm 116. I'll conclude by just reading how we could give thanks for the power that we could have. We do have. I love the Lord because he has heard my voice and my supplications. Because he inclined his ear to me, therefore I will call on him as long as I live. The snares of death encompassed me. Coronavirus was there, and the pangs of hell, and all had a hold on me. And then I called on the name of the Lord. O Lord, I pray, save my life. Lord, bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, both now and evermore. Amen.